Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, another Friday, another podcast for your listening pleasure. Make sure, since you're listening to this podcast, and I know it's your favorite podcast, go ahead and share this with all your VW friends. We love when you guys share the podcast because it helps us grow. And if you haven't given us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and go subscribe to the Let's Talk Dubs YouTube channel. So don't forget, support your boy. If you really want to support, go pick up some merch. Go to letstalkdubs.com, pick up some merch, and don't forget to go and register for One Crazy Weekend. It is starting to go. I got a ton of pre-registration, and it just keeps going. Every day there's somebody else registering, and it's going to be One Crazy Weekend, October 3rd through the 5th, here in Las Vegas at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. You can register today for the car show and, most importantly, the world-famous poker run at letstalkdubs.com. So go check it out today and make the best of your Volkswagen year. I promise you're going to see some of the best stuff you've seen all year at One Crazy Weekend. That comes to cars, people, fun, and nothing but good times. Now, if you guys have been listening to the podcast, you would know that I've been in the UK for the past 2 weeks and actually was in Europe, and then we did the Cowlook Caravan Cruise, which there's a couple videos. There's a video I put out on my YouTube channel, so go check it out with Martin Friedschroeder, the podcast from last week. Super cool video with a lot of detail stuff about his car, so it's pretty amazing. Super fast car, and I'm glad I was able to get that podcast to you guys because he's a really interesting guy. While we were up there at EBI, I did lots of cool stuff. I ran into a ton of listeners to the podcast, so pretty stoked about that. First, the two Darrens from Ireland. Saw those guys up there. Ran into some guys from the UK. Plenty of listeners from there. Want to give a shout out to Hayden, who listens. Also a shout out to my two guys from Australia. I can't remember their names. I tried to write it down. I met so many people that are listeners of the podcast, and super stoked to get a chance to meet so many listeners from around the world. But anyway, as I was there at EBI, I ran into Larry and Rodney Schultz, father and son. They used to race the Some Fun drag car, and Russell hit me up and said, hey, those guys been around forever, and I had a chance to sit down with them and got them on the podcast, get some of their history. So it's a good podcast, a great listen, and I'm sure you guys will be familiar with the Some Fun drag car as well as Larry's car that's been featured in Hot VWs as well. So I'm happy to bring you this podcast. So on this week's episode, Rodney and Larry Schultz, Some Fun drag car, father and son, VW family for life on this week's Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like.
Okay, everybody, so on today's show, I'm here at EBI 2024, again, collecting some interviews while we're out here, and I happened to run into a couple gentlemen that you may be familiar with, especially if you follow some of the pro stock drag racing or the X bracket. I've got Rodney and Larry Schultz here, from Rodney from Surprise, Arizona, and you're originally from Arizona, California?
We're both
from
California.
Oh, from Boston.
Boston, and moved to California in 1975, Southern Orange County.
And so you may remember the Some Fun drag car, which was the car that Rodney campaigned for. About how long did you campaign that car for?
Oh, how many years? Yeah, 10, 12, 14 years.
I hear the Boston now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 14 years you campaigned that car. The way we always start the podcast, and we're going to start with Dad first. We're going to go ahead and start with Rodney here, is what's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
Well, I guess we lived in Boston, and I bought a new 1968 Volkswagen bus. And we actually took that on a trip across the country to California.
Yeah.
Because at the time I had a couple of brothers and sister that did live in California. So we took that on our trip anyways, and it was, we really enjoyed it. Larry here just seemed like he climbed up on the motor and fell asleep all the time. But I think that's why he likes them today, because he's still got that buzz in his ear, you know.
The humming in his ear of the engine.
Exactly.
So you get into it from the standpoint of a consumer buying a bus. When does it become a hobby that starts to interest you? It turns into a little more than that.
Not until we actually moved to California, and that was in 1975. And I was working there, and I bought a 65 squareback from a fella at work. I think it was $200 or $225 or something like that. And I used it for work. And then what happened, then I ended up buying a Toyota for myself, pickup. And I gave that car to my oldest son, Rod Jr. And then he started racing it down in Orange County Raceway. And
Rodney Jr. had a drag car also.
Yes, he has Radical Rod. Yeah. And anyways, we ended up doing that, and then I guess we just kind of got a bug into it, right, Larry? You know, and just started doing things, and we got to meet Lee Leighton.
Yeah.
And we were out there one time, and he said, "Come on out back, I want to show you something." And he took us out back, and it was under a cover, and it was the bug, and it was the Pied Piper.
Now, who campaigned the Pied Piper?
I don't know. I know it was, I think it was in the northwest.
And it was a gasser before you guys made it a pro stock?
Yeah, and well, we got it, and then what did we do, Larry? You know, had Lee Leighton build a motor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you tell him. You know more better than me. He did.
Well, okay, so we have to go back a little further.
So your brother's racing, and so are you guys building your own stuff in the beginning and starting with like a small motor working up to that point? Or?
Yeah, so we had a 1750 built for his squareback. It was 69 by 90 NPR motor.
Uh-huh.
Actually, it was a guy that worked for Autocraft on it. He built motors on the side, and he built that motor, just 40 by 35.5 heads and 44 Webers on it and so forth. And so he raced that at Orange County for a while, and that was in the late 70s. And then in 1979 is when Dad bought my oval rag for my 16th birthday.
Right.
And then by then we were attending all the drag days and bug-ins. And then Dad bought a 1967 street car for my brother for his, and that car was featured we bought it in March of 80. It came out in Huffy W's of May of 80, right after we got it. It was a 1270, 106 mile an hour street, 67, 1980.
That's fast.
Yeah, it was a fast car, and it was the fastest car around our high school and like that. So that had a 2074 Lee Leighton motor in it. Well, after, I don't remember, so many months, he actually broke the crank. It had an old Craftsman 78.4 crank. And so we went out, and the engine had the Lee Leighton sticker, so we took the engine out to him, and he's like, "You can't run this thing on the street." But we were, you know, it was a 2074. It had Fumio heads, FK89.
And you were driving on the street?
Yeah, close ratio trans. So what we did then is Rod had already sold the squareback. We kept that motor. We put that motor in 67 with the 48s on it for more of a daily driver, and we kept the motor so we could switch it in and out. So going with Lee Leighton back and forth with the motor is when...
And at this time, Lee is living where? Is he in the high desert at this time?
Lee had a shop in Riverside on Alamo Street.
Okay.
He had it was like a little mini mall, kind of like industrial complex. Lee had a shop, and then Fumio's shop was just like 2 doors down, maybe, something like that. And so Dad had talked about maybe getting a car, so Lee, like he said, took them all back, uncovered this car, and it was this chop-top car called the Pied Piper. And so Dad bought that car, no motor, had a trans had just been gone through for $2,200, and then Lee built his motor. That was a 2332. It put out 226 horsepower, I think, in early 1982.
And Fumio heads on this one too?
Fumio heads on it. It had Arius slipper skirt pistons in it. I mean, it was a pretty. In fact, remember we took it home after he dynoed it, and the motor was making noise, and we were like, "What is that noise?" So we got scared. We took it back and took it to him. He started it. He said, "Oh, it's the slipper skirt pistons." Or you could hear him in there actually.
You hear him rattling?
You hear him rattling. He ended up taking them back out and machining them and put nylon buttons on kind of the longer end there to keep them kind of straighter in the cylinders, is what he did, yeah. And so that, and I think that motor was like $7,200 in 1882.
Which that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, and that was, brand new Italian carburetors and the exhaust. It had a Berg 84 Swedish forged crank, 411 center main. It was a top of the line deal. So.
And then, Dad, what gets you? So you're helping your son drag race, Rodney Jr.
Yeah.
And what makes you say, you know what? I'm tired of helping. I want to race my own car. What?
Basically, I said what you see on my old car. It was some fun.
Yeah.
So I just said, I got to do this. That's all. I just have to.
And you knew, like, you wanted to build something bigger than what your son had, a little bit bigger motor than what he had, right?
I don't know if it would really, I can't really say that's the truth, because I just wanted to build something that would go fast.
Yeah.
And I think because that car was so much lighter, because Rod was all metal, it's all steel car, and so it was a lot heavier, but it was a very competitive car. Rod
So
was too.
had you run your son's car, or did you have a history with drag racing before this?
What happened is we used to go once in a while down to Long Beach. Mm-hmm. Remember? And then, and they had it was a Big Willie. Big Willie was the name. Terminal Island, yeah. And he used to run that track. You went down there and you spent like $15. You could run your car to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we went down there and I drove Rod's car, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and I just it got me. That's all. I had the bug, so to speak.
And so the first time you get some fun out there after you buy this car, the Pied Piper, and you now have a new motor built for it and all this stuff, first time at the track, what happens?
Let me see. First time, I believe we went to was it Carlsbad for the first time?
Yep.
Was, okay. See, he knows more than I do.
Well, and it still had the original slicks and stuff, and they weren't really any good.
Yeah, they weren't.
So it had the original slicks, and they were a little outdated. And
Yeah.
How was your experience, your first track experience with that car?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't know. It was. I don't know. I wasn't afraid of the car at all. Never have been. But I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It just got to me. And I just couldn't stop. So we just kept going.
And what kind of times did you run first time out?
First pass on it with those old cars was 11:68.
Yeah.
So the first pass was 11:68.
She smoked them first, second, and third gear. It eventually ended up, that car ran 1080s at 126 on carburetors.
Same motor, same setup, just once you fine-tuned everything and you got everything dialed in.
Yeah.
And then what was the competition running at that time?
We were very competitive. We were running this, we were right there running with Steve Timms. I mean, all those guys that were running the X bracket. If you were running, 1120s to high 10s, you were all in there. It didn't ultimately matter because that was all bracket racing anyways. Of course, you wanted to go fast if you could, but by then the bug-ins had got rid of most of the gas classes like I gas, J gas, H gas, whatever, and it was pretty much all just bracket racing, just the top qualifications like quick 32 or something like that. But once you're in, you're dialed in, and then it was up to you. So.
And now so during this time, you got your older brother's drag racing, your dad's drag racing, and you've got a car that you start building that. And your car was featured in Hot VW's September 2002 Hot VW's called Larry's Looker. And at this time, you're in Oklahoma at the time the car comes out because you guys had moved and some things for that.
Correct.
But it took you how long you got that car for your 16th birthday? You finished it, you were how old?
Oh, boy. How old was I? 36? So I drove that car for, quite a few years on the street to high school and college and to work and so forth. So I drove it for a long time. I started taking it apart in 1984, actually. And before that, I had put a 1750 big, 48s, big heads. The heads were actually done by Art. He drove a car called Mad Pineapple, which was a race car back then. Big heads on it, big, Ingo VZ cam. It was a fast car. I didn't lose too many street races with that car. I street raced it a lot.
Now, where would you guys street race at?
Santa Fe Springs was a big one. You're cruising Whittier Boulevard, and then you'd meet. Actually, in Santa Fe Springs, they had a quarter mile painted on the road.
Well, who are the guys you remember? Any of the guys that were into drag racing out there street racing too?
Corey McClenathan. Corey was in La Habra with us.
And he had his oval window?
He had his white oval window, yeah. We kind of started all racing the same time.
And anybody else, any other notables that were out there racing?
Yeah, there was a guy named Steve Wilkerson. He was in DKK, I believe. He had a Carmagia that was fast. I was with him a few times when we were street racing that. That car ended up getting stolen, but that was a fast, fun car, and he was a really good driver.
A lot of this I didn't know.
Yeah. What was that? Get that?
I said a lot of this street racing he did. I did not know about it.
Oh, you didn't know anything
No,
about it?
I did not.
You thought he was saving it for the track, huh?
I'm not sure what, but I just didn't know about it.
So
I don't know what I would have done if I did.
Yeah. And so when you've got your car, you take it apart in '84, but Dad's campaigning his car, and you start racing your car what year?
Dad's in '82.
And races up until when?
It was probably 92, 94, something in there, I'm guessing.
And what's the X car is, what's the specs on this car? Is it all naturally aspirated?
It didn't matter when you run an X bracket. Later on, though, I don't remember what year that was. The early 90s is when they came out with the very first Pro Stock class.
Right.
I think Gene Berg sponsored it, and that car had to weigh 1,550 pounds with a driver in it, had to be a full pan car, on carburetors, no power adders, such as that. And that was a heads-up race. And Dad did win the very first race that they held with that.
Was the race for the gold? Was it that with those classes?
The Race for the Gold was an organization that Gene Berg actually sponsored and started up because he was trying to get his own thing going. And
did you guys know Gene?
Oh, of course. Yeah, sure. We used to see him all the time,
But Lee Leighton was your engine guy. Like, that's
Right.
the guy you used?
Yep, exactly.
And
Yep.
all those guys were contemporaries back in the 60s, yeah?
Oh, yeah, they were, yeah.
So there was a little bit of competition between all those guys.
Yeah, but you know what? Berg never said anything, I mean, it wasn't like he was upset because Leighton built our motor or something like that. He never really said anything. Actually, I don't know if you ever know Gene Berg?
I sold him a set of carburetors at Pomona one time.
Okay.
What can you tell me about your experience with Gene Berg?
Gene Berg was different.
In what way?
One time you go down there and he'd hug you and you're your best friend, and the next time you get down he'd just look at you and turn and walk away. Just like that. I have no clue when or why he would do it, but that's just the way he was, Now his wife Dee she was an awesome lady. Really, really nice, She was always very pleasant and helpful and everything. And I can't remember his name, who works in, he still does, right?
Tim and Mark.
They've been working there for 50 years, I guess.
And now, when you're racing in the 90s and you're in a pro stock class, who are you guys racing against? Like, who are the people that you're battling it out with? Because you said you won one of your first race series that you went into. You won the first race you went to.
Yeah, that was in Phoenix too.
Phoenix Bugorama.
Yeah, the Phoenix first pro stock race was in Phoenix. And the funny part of that all is, like Larry said, we got to make the weight. I ended up taking all the big sockets out of my toolbox and putting them in my pocket so I could make the weight.
Oh, really? You're that close on weight?
Yeah, it was really close on weight. Yeah.
And what was that car running in those? What the best time was on that Some Fun car?
Best time it ran? What was it? 1086. And that was in Fremont, wasn't it? I think it was up in Fremont.
Fremont, California?
Yeah.
And now, with you getting in there, and this is a hobby, moving to California has a big influence on you as to why you start getting into Volkswagens, because so many people have them out there?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And then any people that you've made special relationships with throughout the hobby while you're down there? Anybody you still keep in touch with today?
Well, we did. We met with quite a few people, right? Dominic Lupino, and Corey, of course, was there. And, oh, gosh, I can't think of them. Can you think of other ones left?
It was a pretty tight-knit community then, we were all pretty much friends, and it was fun times. It was good times. I still, being on Facebook, it's easy to keep in contact with a lot of them now. For a while there was a big gap where it didn't really, because I had moved away, so really weren't close, but it's allowed us to get contact with a lot of them again.
Now, how long did your brother race for?
So we started racing his car in 80. He raced that car till around 86, maybe. And the reason he stopped is because he started, Gene Brown, who had a car called Stripteaser, it was a Ghia. He bought Jeff Leninger's, or I think that's his name, G Dragster that he raced in Competition Eliminator, Volkswagen powered. Gene bought that car, and then Rod drove that dragster for him for several years.
Oh, so your brother ended up driving for somebody for a while.
Yeah, he drove for Gene Brown for several years, driving that dragster.
Now, is your brother still in the hobby?
No, he's talked about getting another car. Of course, he sold his car to Russell.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have one. He does, last I talked to him, he had a Sanrail, the Volkswagen-powered Sanrail. So I guess you could say he's still in it, kind of. Not in the street scene, but still has a Volkswagen. Yeah.
And now your car, so what happens with Dad's car when because he runs it from, what'd you say, 84 to 92?
82 to probably 93, 94.
And why do you stop racing, Dad?
Got to think about that. I don't really remember.
Well, I was kind of hot at it by then too.
Yeah.
And then you started racing Competition Eliminator with Gene Brown.
Yeah, I ended up, that's true, with Gene Brown, we ended up with a FED, four-cylinder Pontiac engine in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was kind of partners with him because it used to say Brown and Schultz on the side of the car, and did that for quite a few years.
So you kind of parked the bug, like you were working into a different class, running a GM. Was this like during Battle of the Imports type stuff? Is that when this class started coming around?
Yeah. It was.
And so the car, some fun, just starts to sit for a while.
Yeah, it did really. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think of where we even.
I was in Rod's shop over there.
Yeah, when my son, I bought a house over there with my son in Whittier, and then we put up like a 1,000-square-foot garage, and we used to keep our stuff in there, and I guess it just sat there. I don't know. I've thought about it quite a bit, but I can't really remember why I finally just decided that was enough,
And when you sold it directly to Russell? Russell tracked you down?
You put it on Samba, and then Russell called me. A few people called me, but Russell called me, and he was very much interested. Of course, Russell, he wants go lower.
Right.
But I wouldn't get down a penny, So he finally said, okay. So he ended up sending somebody, I guess, from Houston. They flew to Phoenix and rented a U-Haul truck and a trailer and came to my house and picked it up. And as a matter of fact, he was showing me pictures of it, That was a sad day.
How long ago was that?
That must have been, let me see, 2003. I was there in 2003, probably 2006, probably 2006 or 7, I'm not sure.
So that car sits in the garage for like 12 years.
Yeah, it did. It didn't run for a long time. It didn't run for a long time because we brought it to Arizona, and I had it in the garage. And as a matter of fact, I told Russell, I says, you know, I wouldn't even fire it up, and you know, I'd check it, you know, because it hasn't been run for so long. You know, I'd go through it first, you know. I don't know what he did do, but I did hear him say, oh, it sounded so great, you know.
Now, did you guys do your own teardowns and rebuilds and stuff like that after a while?
Yeah. Larry now builds motors for other people, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So the car sits for all this time. You sell it to Russell. Russell ends up taking the car and then starts to build it and put it back. You guys are here at the European Bug-In. When's the last time you guys were at a Bug-In?
Oh, boy. I really don't know.
Last time we were at a Volkswagen drag race is the 90s?
Yeah, we were, but we went around. It wasn't so much a Bug-In, right? It was only, the Bug-Ins were like, Sacramento was Memorial Day and Labor Day. Yeah, and then Bug-A-Rama up there in Sacramento. And we always went to them, and it was always like hell up there. It was 110 degrees, you know. But
and being from Phoenix, that's something to say.
There was
being from Arizona.
There was runs in Phoenix, and we went to them. We basically went all around wherever something was coming up, you know. We went to Sears Point and Bakersfield, which was Bakersfield. The track was.
Now, do you remember any particular races where it was dogfight to the end, or anything during the course of racing that car that was just something that was completely unexpected? Or,
well, you know, one time I was up in Antelope Valley, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a Fiat, and we were meeting in the final. Well, his exhaust broke on his car, and he says, I can't race. You know, he says, I can't race. So I said, I got a torch kit right in my trailer. Take it, weld it up, and fix it. Because I wanted to race him. I didn't want to just say, no, he couldn't race, you know.
Right, you want a default win.
No, I definitely didn't want that. I beat him anyway, so it was good. It was a good thing. But that's where most B-dub races were back then. If somebody needed something, if you had it, you gave it to them. As simple as that, you know. You didn't even think about it. Larry can tell you about the oil filter, right?
Well, that was where we were up in Sonoma, I think, and that was Mitch Evanson. I think he was out there the first time racing his Gia, and he blew up his oil filter and needed one, so we gave him one. And he was just shocked we'd give him one. And I said, no, of course you can have it. Just if we meet in the final, we need it back. But
so he's using your oil filter.
Well, we had an extra
race.
one, you know. So, but you know, I mean, I would think the most probably memorable part for me would be, you know, that car originally had a Dino straight axle front end like Lee Leighton's car, and those were notoriously known for being kind of
a little
ill
squirrely
handling on the top end. And Dad had done such a big wheelie, I think it was at Sacramento, that actually bent the tube, and so we tried to fix it, and of course we didn't know what we were doing. And then when we unloaded at Orange County, when it was a drag day or Bug-In, I don't remember which one, he was in the left lane and went through it like 113 miles an hour, and the car just turned directly right and went across the lane, hit the guardrail, went up about 10 feet in the air, came back down on the guardrail on the rear end and the wheelie bars, and then it threw it across the track. So.
Oh wow! And how'd Dad fare?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it from the start. You know, it scared us to death, obviously. But there was a race 3 weeks later in Carlsbad, and we were there. We ended up taking that out. We actually put a full pan back under the car, because when they put those Dino front ends, it cut the pan head right off them. Is what they do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that would mount like on your firewall. There is where all that would mount. And so we got an old pan and put it on there and put a Volkswagen front end on it. And that car originally was all steel front end, actually, and so we went with a fiberglass front end because it was completely. And that's probably why we ended up repainting that car, is because we lost all that paint job on the front, because the original paint job was much more of a gasser style 60s, 70s paint job, and then
right.
after that we had a Chevy white front end on it, and it looked kind of goofy, so we ended up painting the whole rest of the car. But so I think that was the only time we ever really crashed it.
Yeah, that was the only crash.
Yeah, we had a couple close calls, but I think that was the only time.
Now, who did you guys Do you remember any finals races that you were just battling with anybody that it was a real kind of a heated deal? Because in racing, there's always a little bit of drama. There's always some kind of drama. Someone thinks no one's playing fair, and someone's any of that things you may remember.
I ran the 1086. That was the guy was next to us had nitrous. I can't remember who it was, but he had nitrous on his car, you know. And I was really concerned about that because he started squeezing, you know. I figured he's gonna, you know, he just picked up another 100 horsepower or something, you know. He's gonna blow by me, but he didn't. He didn't. I ended up beating him. So it was a fun time.
Yeah.
Fun time,
So nothing but good memories from some fun,
absolutely.
Right? No better way to spend some money.
Yeah. That's why the S was a $sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
But, you know, actually, it goes way back. When I was 17, I used to race stock cars back in Massachusetts. Yeah, I had it was a 1938 Dodge.
a 1938 Dodge you were racing, huh?
Yeah, it was a 4-door. And I'll tell you what, in 1959, I won the grand final with that car. That car they had us in there running what they called, we were novice class, they called it. And the next one up was the Bombers, which was like small coupes, deuce coupes with V8s in them and stuff like that. And they had us in there running with them. Now, when we get the straightaway, they'd blow me away, but come to the corners, that old Dodge of mine, I could just never take my foot off the floor, and it would just shoot right around the corners, you know. But then I started, of course, I met my wife, and my future wife, obviously, and then in 1960, I started doing it again, and I was at the same track, and I was passing the guy on the outside on the fourth turn, and he lost control and hit me, pushed me into the wall. The car bounced over off the wall, laid on its side, and the old rule back then is you don't undo your belt until somebody looks in, unless the car's on fire, you know?
Yeah.
And I was on my side like that, and then somebody ran right into the car again when it was on the side, you know? I went down the track, scraped my helmet all up and everything. And that was basically the end of my stock car racing right there. You know?
Yeah. So and then what did the wife say when you wanted to get in a drag, when the boy gets in a drag race, when Rodney gets in a drag race and Rodney Jr., what does the wife say to that?
She's all for it.
Oh,
she
yeah?
really was, yep.
Fully supportive.
She's all for it. If you look at the back window, you know, it says her name right on it, Kathy, you know.
Nice.
She was 100% behind us.
That's fantastic.
Really.
What do you think coming here, you know, 30 years after you've been to a Volkswagen event and coming to Europe and seeing that the hobby is still alive and well? I mean, it even looks probably bigger than some of the bug-ins.
Oh, yeah, I think so. It's been a real experience, you know. It's my first time in Europe, and Larry's been over here before, but not to the bug-in, but he'd been here before. But I'm just really enjoying it. I'm very impressed with them all, you know, and I just love seeing everybody keeping this sport really going, you know.
Any desire to ever get back into a car?
I'll tell you, yesterday when we were up there and they were drag racing, I heard that motor rev up and I felt like I wanted to get in that car, you know. I really did. I felt like I wanted to get in that car. It was, like I said, some fun, you know. It really was. I enjoyed it immensely, you know. I really did.
What does it make you, what do you think of the fact that you just had this old race car and somebody wanted to buy it for the historical relevance of that car? How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel awesome. It really does. I mean, I don't think anybody could have been better for that car than Russell, you know, because he is, you know how he is. He's into that. He wants all this stuff. Matter of fact, he's showing me, when I sold him the car, and I wrote down a lot of stuff about it, what different races we had went to and stuff like that. And I had a few pictures, even pictures of when they picked the car up, and I was sad. And he had all that stuff. He's got all that stuff in the thing, and he was showing it to me here. So it just made me feel really good, though. You know?
That you put your heart and soul into something, and you get to a point in life where things change, but somebody wants to enjoy it as much and enjoys the history of what you did with that car.
Exactly. Somebody that was going to keep the car the way it was not destroy it, you know, tear it apart, and just keep it going, so to speak. You know, it just makes me feel honored today to see that car still the way it is, that I made it. You know, we made it, I should say. You know.
Now, Larry, so you jumping back onto your car, which was featured in 2002. That car took you finished it when you were 36, started on working on it when you were 17, 18, tore it apart?
So yeah, I would have been, probably 20. So I took the car apart, and of course the goal was to finish it in a year or so, but life happened and didn't. I took it apart, and I took it to Pete Santini at Christmas time of '83. And he looked at it, and I told him, you know, it was all stock. I had it on a different pan, and then he did a quote up for painting it, and so then I ended up getting that car back from him in October probably of '84. But he did paint that. I paid $3,900 for that paint job in 1984, which was quite a bit of money. But
That's a lot of money.
Pete was he was the man. You know, and it was black and it was straight. It looked like a piece of granite. You know, that car always looked like it was dipped in a bucket of paint and pulled out. It was just such a nice paint job. And even, you take pictures of that car now, it still looks amazing. It really is held up well. But, so I got that back from him. I ended up having Becker's Bug House actually touch that car up a little bit as well in a few places, but. And then I was collecting motor parts and so forth, and I got into dirt bikes and jet skis and boats and other stuff, and the car sat, and it was at my brother's garage, it was a hassle to work on it. And then working with Hughes Aircraft, then I ended up transferring to Maryland from California. Took it with me there, and I got married, and then moved to Oklahoma, where I'm at now. And finally finished the car, which was kind of unfortunate because the car was originally made to be in a looker. By the time I finished it, the lookers really weren't the scene that was going on.
Right, it was a little different scene by 2000.
It was a different scene, and everybody kind of looked at it like, what the heck is that? But so it was kind of funny. But the people that knew. And the funny part is, even living in the Midwest all these years, when I'm at shows or stuff and people would go, Schultz, your name kind of sounds familiar. And I say, well, we used to raise some fun and stuff. And they go, I know that car, I remember that car. I've got a picture of that car in my garage or something, so even though we were big in California, it actually did transcend across the country. So it's amazing you can be that far away and people knew that car.
And what ends up happening with that car?
So, when I finished that car, went to quite a few different shows, drove it some, and I don't know, I was just ready for a change. I just was time for a change, and so I decided to go ahead and get rid of it. And then it actually went to Rick Mortensen first in Arizona. And then Rick is the one that ended up selling it to Russell.
So now Russell owns that car as well?
Yes.
So Russell owns the family collection.
Yeah, he owns,
all three cars?
All three cars, yep. He owns my car, Dad's car, and Rod's Radical Rod. He bought Dad's first, and then mine, I believe. And then I think he bought Rod's, last. So, and then he got that from... And then Russell did change it up before he shipped it to Scotland. He put original BRMs on it. I had alloys on it. He changed the interior a little bit, went a little more old school. I think Rick had taken the motor out of that car. I'm not sure what happened to that. Roger Crawford had actually built that motor. In '95, Roger built that motor. I sent all the parts to him, and we went out there for Christmas, and he had it ready, and then we dynoed it out there. It was a 2275. It was 190 horsepower, so it was a nice street car.
It ran good, and so now that car is gone. Yeah. Russell's got that car. You guys don't have any Volkswagens.
Yeah.
When you come out here to something like this, do you get like a feeling like you want to start get another Volkswagen?
Well, so I actually, after the black car, I had a Porsche 83 911 Cabriolet. but it had a last year the C4 air-cooled motor in it, so it was a pretty fun car. I had that for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, and I said, I want a bug again. So I ended up getting rid of that, and I got a 58 European ragtop with semaphores. Yeah, and I had that car. It was a pretty nice car. Somebody had spent a lot of time. It had a Lenny Kopp interior, a nice paint job and all that, but somebody ran out of money, and so I bought it, and then I had Dave Foltz do the trans, and I built a 1776 for it, and had that car for a couple years again, and then I kind of lost interest. And then sold that car. I went to Florida. I sold it through oldbug.com, that car. And a guy drove up from Florida and bought it as soon as he saw it. And then fast forward to all this time, I had been working with a guy that had an oval window, 56. And then he had taken it apart back in the late 90s with the intention of redoing it and didn't have the money. And I had always told him, hey, if you ever sell it, let me know. And he called me in 2014, I believe, and said, hey, I'm ready to part with the car. So I went up there and got it. It was completely apart, but had most all the parts there, except for original trans front end, didn't have the original motor anymore. And I bought that car and just finished taking it apart the rest of the way, and then completely redid that car and finished it in 2021.
So you still have that car?
I have that car, yeah.
So that you said it's a 56?
56. It was featured in Hut VW's Cowlook issue this year.
Oh, was it?
In February 24 with Mark Akulian's car.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
My car was the other car in there.
Yeah, so that's
another
one of the Schultz. So the Schultz are not done. And now you got to get your brother back into it, get him to get a street car.
He's talked about it. I don't know how serious, but he has talked about getting
And now
one.
You're living in
Northeast Oklahoma.
Northeast Oklahoma. What's the scene like there?
It's actually pretty good. There's a lot of, I have a lot of friends within 30, 60 mile range that have quite a few nice cars. They have quite a few events. The Eureka Springs show in Arkansas is a huge show in August. That's been going on for 30 plus years now, actually. They have hundreds of cars there, and it draws all the way Texas, Iowa, and around. That's probably the biggest one. We have shows in Kansas City, show in Springfield, show in Oklahoma City. Dallas, Texas is only five hours away. Oklahoma City's 3 hours. In fact, that's last September. I was at the Mustang Oklahoma show, was where Shin saw the car, and that's when he did the photo shoot for my current car there. So
you're still actively involved in the hobby.
Yep. And it took me a while to finish that car. Of course, COVID didn't help. I kind of stopped for about a year there, but I sourced a lot of original old school parts for that car. I found an NOS Berg merge header and dual mufflers in Pennsylvania. The center lines, I got a set from San Diego and a set from Pennsylvania. I got the mag. I bought the carburetors from Wisconsin, and then Gary Berg did the carburetors. Tim's did the heads. Dave Foltz did the trans. I spent a lot of time. It's got a lot of really neat old school parts. It's got a Berg traction bar, 4-quart sump. All that stuff. I really worked hard to try to find the original parts, like it was when I built them originally in the early 80s, late 70s.
And what size motor's in there?
It's a 2017, so it's a 78.4 by 90.5. Reason I did that is because that oval engine compartment is so small. You can run the 78.4 with a 5.4 rod and run a B piston and cylinder, and I cut about 70 thousandths off the bottom of the cylinder, and it makes it a stock width motor, but it's a stroker.
Oh, so it's nice to put in that engine.
So it's easy to go into the car. So that's why I picked that size. So, and then Bill Rogers, a lot of people know Bill Rogers. He's been in the scene for decades. I got the cam from him, Engel FK43, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of neat parts on that car.
Yeah, it seems like, as much as you've tried to get out of the hobby, you just keep coming back.
Yeah, kind of. And yeah, my wife's told me a couple times, you sure you want to sell that thing? Because I don't want to hear you complaining once it's gone. But she always lets me get another one. And I'm going to hold on to this one, I think.
So now,
I really like
is this one a
car.
driver? You can take it
Yeah,
out, take
it's
it
a
on
driver,
nice
yes.
drives?
I mean, I would call it a high-level driver. I had no choice but to do it right because the car was apart. But it is original color prairie beige. It was original to the car. It did have originally all red leather red interior, but I went with red insert, kind of almost like a plaid red insert.
Yeah.
And I had SoFine do all that, but I installed it all. But so it looks really old school when people see it. You rather get it or you don't, but they understand. The center lines make it look really Cadillac. I have a set of BRMs too that I switch back and forth, but.
Well, listen, guys, I definitely appreciate sitting down and getting your story. And you're still in the game. Are you actively headed? So you're kind of go to the shows. You're like Eureka Springs. You'll see the car there. You're actively involved in the VW community out there in Oklahoma.
Yes. Yeah. I try to attend every show I can. I do my best to do that. I'm hoping to go to the Texas versus World there in September. I haven't been to that yet.
You gonna run the car?
I don't know yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I definitely will go, and I'm going to take the car. I don't know if I'll show it or run it. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But I would like to go to the event in Vegas in December too, but I don't know if I'll take the car or just attend that. I don't know.
Well, I'm from Vegas. When you come out there, look me up. Well, for sure, we'll go grab lunch or something.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast, and I appreciate you guys for your involvement in the hobby. I'm glad you're still in it. And, what's your take on coming to this European bug-in?
Yeah, it's really awesome. And, of course, with Facebook, it's so easy. I have lots of friends over here in Europe because of our mutual hobby, people that I've dealt with, I've even bought parts from, and I've shipped parts to. Really neat to meet them in person and see their cars and talk to them for sure. This really brings back memories of the old bug-ins and stuff. It's just how many people are here. It's just amazing, I haven't attended. I know they have some big events out in California in June. I haven't been to those. With this event, that wasn't an option. I've thought about next June maybe taking my car out to all those events they have out there.
Well, I do an event in Las Vegas because that's where I'm from. So October 3rd through the 5th, we do one crazy weekend, which is based out of a hotel. We do a strip cruise, car show, and a poker run.
Okay.
And so it's a great time. Russell comes out for that. So if you guys want to come out to Vegas in October and then grab a quick flight in December to watch the drags, you know where it's at. But I definitely, I think it's awesome that, a father and son, and really you got into Volkswagens because of Dad?
Yes, for sure. Yep.
And what I want to say too is it wasn't for my wife.
Yeah.
It wasn't for my wife being as good at everything, it wouldn't have happened probably, But she's always been right there with us. And as a matter of fact, in a couple more days, we're going to be married 64 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
July 1st,
Yeah, July 3rd's my anniversary. I'm 25 years with my wife.
Really?
Yeah. And my wife is patiently sitting back there while I sit here and do podcasts, take her around the world so I can do podcasts. And we just drove a bus about 1,000 miles across from England all the way through Wolfsburg with all these guys. So
awesome.
I know what it's like to have a wonderful partner in life that supports what you do. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. She was only 18. I was only 19. We were kids, right?
That's it. She was a kid. I was 26. She was 18. So we'll talk about that later.
You're a cradle robber.
But listen, I couldn't fight her off. She was in love, and what could you do? What could you do?
Imagination's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is. Science fiction is what it is. So, well, father and son Schultz, I appreciate you guys for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with our community.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, believe me.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you guys maybe in Vegas either in October or December or maybe even both.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
If you like that podcast, make sure you guys subscribe. To get information on Let's Talk Dubs One Crazy Weekend, go to letstalkdubs.com and click on the flyer right on the main page. If you've got questions or topics to be discussed on the podcast, or any random interest, you can shoot me an email at bill@letstalkdubs.com, and I can get that answer back to you. Any kind of listener email, send to that, and we'll read your question on the air. Make sure you support those that support Let's Talk Dubs. Go to vwtrendsmagazine.com. Subscribe today. Also, go check out the cool products made for enthusiasts by enthusiasts at rosswolf.com. That's rosswolf.com. And if you guys don't know, we're going to be coming out shortly with videos from EBI, as well as my GTV bug that was helped kick back off with Impy. Turned out to Impy for some Impy manufactured products for the Impy GTV bug that I've got on the East Coast that should be out here hopefully by October. So anyway, guys, appreciate you listening. Don't forget to share the podcast. And until next week, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.